Most men assume the payment is for the content. It isn't. By the time someone becomes a regular subscriber, the transaction has already shifted into something else entirely. The content becomes secondary. What's being purchased is the feeling of being selected. This isn't about access. Access is free everywhere. This is about the construction of perceived proximity. The interesting part isn't that men pay, it's what they believe they're receiving in exchange. Let me explain what actually happens in the decision-making process. But first, notice what's already in place before the first payment is made. The platform is structured to create a specific psychological environment. Short content, limited access, direct messaging, personalized responses. This isn't accidental design. This is engineered scarcity translated into digital intimacy. When you watch free content on other platforms, you're passive. You scroll, you skip, you move on. There's no relationship to maintain, no expectation of recognition. You're anonymous in a sea of millions. Here, you're known, or at least you're made to feel known. The model learns your name, responds to your messages, creates content based on your requests. This isn't a transaction anymore. This feels like interaction. This feels like she remembers you. And that's where men misread the entire structure. They interpret responsiveness as interest. They interpret personalization as preference. They interpret availability as connection. But what's actually happening is a carefully maintained illusion of exclusivity. You're not the only one receiving personalized content. You're not the only one getting responses. You're not special in the way you think you are. You're special in the way a customer is special. The payment isn't for the photos. It's for the feeling that she made them for you. This is where the psychology shifts from arousal-based consumption to attachment-based consumption. Other platforms run on dopamine, fast hits, immediate satisfaction, high stimulation, quick exit. This runs on oxytocin, bonding, familiarity, repeated low-level engagement that builds perceived intimacy over time. The videos are short, deliberately, not because there isn't more content to show, but because complete satisfaction would eliminate the need to return. You're given just enough to feel connected, never enough to feel finished. It's the same mechanism that keeps people checking their phones, not because each individual notification is deeply satisfying, but because the unpredictability of when the next one arrives keeps the loop active. You come back, not because you need more content, because you need more contact. Now here's what men don't realize they're doing. They're constructing a one-sided relationship and then behaving as if it's mutual. In clinical terms, this is parasocial attachment. One party is emotionally invested, the other is professionally engaged, but the invested party experiences it as reciprocal. She responds to your messages. That feels like conversation. She uses your name. That feels like recognition. She creates content based on your requests. That feels like consideration. None of that is personal. All of that is transactional, but it doesn't feel transactional. And that gap between what it is and what it feels like, that's where the subscription becomes recurring. The payment structure itself reinforces this. Monthly subscriptions create routine. Pay-per-view content creates anticipation. Custom requests create the illusion of influence. Each payment type serves a different psychological function, but they all feed the same underlying need, the need to matter to someone who appears to have chosen you specifically. Think about how this plays out in practice. A man sends a message. She responds within hours, sometimes minutes. He requests specific content. She delivers it with his name attached. He feels heard. He feels prioritized. He feels like his preferences shape her behavior. What he doesn't see is the system behind it, the message templates, the scheduled responses, the rotation of custom content that gets slightly modified per request, the efficiency tools that make personalization scalable. He's not experiencing intimacy. He's experiencing customer service optimized to feel like intimacy. And here's the critical part. This works even when men suspect it's not real, because the feeling is real. The attention feels genuine even when the relationship isn't. The brain processes the interaction as social connection regardless of the commercial framework. That's why logic doesn't break the pattern. Men can know intellectually that this is a business transaction and still feel emotionally invested. The knowledge doesn't override the experience. Most men who pay regularly are not single, they're in relationships, often married. The research shows this clearly. Heterosexual men, committed relationships, regular payments. So, what are they paying for if they already have access to intimacy? They're paying for the feeling of being chosen, not sexually, emotionally. In their actual relationships, they may feel invisible, taken for granted, functionally necessary but not particularly desired. They provide, they're reliable, but they're not pursued. Here, they feel pursued, or at least they feel seen. The model messages first sometimes, remembers previous conversations, asks follow-up questions, sends content without being prompted. This creates the sensation of being wanted, not just tolerated. That's the product, not the content, the feeling. The difference becomes stark when you compare interactions. In a real relationship, your partner has bad days, gets distracted, forgets things, needs space, has priorities that don't include you. This is normal. This is how actual human connection works. In a subscription relationship, the model is never too tired to respond, never too busy to create content, never distracted by her own problems. She exists in a state of permanent availability, permanent enthusiasm, permanent focus on the subscriber. This isn't because she's more interested, it's because she's being paid to perform interest. But to the man receiving it, the distinction dissolves. The performance becomes the reality. Now let's talk about what this means for the women creating the content. The narrative sold to potential creators is financial freedom. Make your own hours, control your own income, be your own boss. And yes, some women make enormous amounts of money, but the distribution is heavily skewed. The top 1% of creators earn about a third of all revenue on the platform. The top 10% take nearly 75%. The remaining 90% split what's left. So when you see stories about women making six figures a month, you're seeing the extreme outlier. Most creators are making far less, often much less than they would in a conventional job. But the illusion is maintained because the algorithm only shows you the winners. Social media doesn't broadcast the median, it broadcasts the maximum. Why? Because the platform needs new creators. It needs women to believe this is viable. It needs men to believe these women are accessible. The entire system depends on both sides misunderstanding what they're participating in. Women think they're selling content. They're actually selling the performance of availability. Men think they're buying access. They're actually buying the simulation of intimacy. Both believe they're in control. Neither is. Here's the part that doesn't get discussed enough. The return on investment emotionally is near zero. You're not building a relationship. You're renting the feeling of one. The woman on the other side isn't getting to know you. She's managing a customer base. Your name is in a spreadsheet. Your preferences are noted for efficiency. Your messages are answered in batches. This isn't cynical. This is practical. If you're managing 50, 100, 200 subscribers, you can't actually know any of them. You can only create the appearance of knowing them, and that's enough. Because what's being sold isn't real intimacy. It's the feeling of intimacy. And feelings don't require accuracy. They require believability. So the man pays. Repeatedly. Because each payment renews the sense of being selected. Each personalized video reinforces the idea that he matters to her specifically. He doesn't. But the system is designed so that fact never becomes obvious. Now think about what this does over time. If you're spending months, sometimes years, in this pattern, you're training yourself to associate intimacy with payment. You're learning that attention is purchased, that connection is transactional, that being wanted costs money. This doesn't stay contained to the platform. It recalibrates your expectations in actual relationships. If your baseline for feeling desired is a woman who responds immediately, remembers everything, and prioritizes your preferences, then a real partner will feel inadequate by comparison. Real intimacy is inconsistent. It's distracted. It requires negotiation. It doesn't always center you. Digital intimacy centers you completely because you paid for it to. So men get stuck, not because they're addicted to the content, because they're dependent on the feeling. And the only place that feeling is reliably available is behind a paywall. The women are stuck too, because once you've monetized access to yourself, walking away means losing income. And the longer you stay, the harder it is to rebuild a life where your value isn't tied to how many men are paying to feel close to you. The creation process itself becomes a trap. Every day requires producing content. Every message requires a response. Every subscriber requires maintenance. The performance of availability becomes a full-time job with no days off. Because the moment you stop performing, someone else will. And your subscribers will move on. Both sides are trapped in a system that profits from loneliness, not by solving it, by commercializing it. The platform doesn't want you to feel satisfied. It wants you to feel connected enough to stay, unsatisfied enough to keep paying. That's not intimacy. That's a subscription model optimized for retention. And once you're in, the exit cost isn't financial. It's psychological. Because leaving means admitting what you were actually paying for.